Chapter 1. He was going to kill the bitch. Jag pounded on the door. Again. She was pushing him to his limit, and that was not good. For him, for her, for the human race in general. Fucking open the door or I'll bust the fucking thing in, got me? He was going to knock politely only one more time, then that was it. He politely kicked the door with his heavy biker boot. That was going to leave a mark. If you don't open this fucking door, right? The door jerked open, and something, or someone, tried to fly by him. Jag reached out a hand and snagged the fleeing body. With a grip around a skinny bicep, the guy came to a screeching halt. Jag flung him around to face him. He scowled. Who the fuck are you? The already pale guy turned sheet white. With eyes wide, mouth open, he had a discarded shirt bunched in his fist and his pants hung loosely around his hips, since he apparently hadn't taken the time to finish fastening them before the man decided to jet. Which was a smart move. But then Ivy tended to pick smart dudes, though they never hung around long. Geeky dudes and a biker babe don't mix, no matter how many times she tries. And he got it. He really did. Ivy was smart herself. Genius, even, and she needed a challenge. Other than becoming a biker's old lady. Or his old lady, more like it. Jag looked down at the guy's bare feet. It seemed he forgot his fucking shoes in his haste. Stupid fuck. Maybe he wasn't so smart after all. You touch Dirty Angel's property? The guy's mouth opened and closed like a guppy as he stared up at Jag, who towered over him by at least 5 inches. Asked a damn question. Did you? Get gone, Jag. His eyes slid to the woman now standing in the doorway, holding out a pair of loafers with socks tucked into them. The one wearing a fucking robe, and probably nothing else. The guy's eyes dropped to his offered shoes, then he snagged them and clasped them to his chest as if they were a lifeline. Get in the house. Deal with you shortly. The hell you will. Get gone, Jag. His head twisted in her direction, and he took his time inspecting her from top to toe. That fucking deep red hair of hers spilled around her shoulders, clearly messed up from a fresh fuck, which he hoped he'd interrupted. Because if anyone should be in her bed, it should be him. Her lips were swollen and pouty. God damn, if she had those lips around this nerd's cock, his brain would explode. Her green eyes snapped in anger. Whatever, she could be mad all she wanted. He was just as pissed. No, more. Who I fuck is none of your damn business, came out of that smart mouth. He gritted his teeth before answering. The fuck it isn't. Anything to do with DAMC property is my business. Especially after she climbed into his bed all those months ago. Well, I'm not DAMC property, so get gone. Jag released the now very scared guy with a shove. He stumbled, caught his balance on the veranda railing, then ran down the metal stairs, taking 2 at a time. Like a scared mouse, he sprinted toward a car parked on the street. He should have known the guy drove a fucking Prius. He should have slashed the Geekmobile's tires for dipping his dick in DAMC property. Fucker doesn't even ride a bike. You've got shit taste in Lays, Ivy. Don't I know it, she muttered, making Jag's jaw tighten. Don't come back here, Jag yelled his warning through the dark to the guy scrambling into his car like his ass was on fire. If you know what's good for you, he finished under his breath. He turned back to face the pissed-off redhead dressed in black silk that hugged all her damn curves. His balls tightened as hard as his jaw. Probably needs a dick extension to fuck you. I don't know if that's an insult to me or to him. Either way, you don't belong here, Jag, so I'll say it again. Get gone. Not leaving. Ivy lifted a shoulder. Okay, then. You'll be standing out here all night while I'm sleeping soundly in my bed. Thanks to you, alone. Normally, I'd say goodnight, but fuck you." The door slammed shut, and Jag heard the deadbolt click. He grimaced and stared at the door. Little did she know that her uncle, Ace, had given him the key. He grinned, turned on his heel, and jogged down the steps to where his bike was parked at the foot of the stairway in the pawnshop lot. She may not let him in, but his mission was accomplished. He chased away Ivy's latest conquest. And he'd keep doing it until she got some sense and realized everything she needed has been right in front of her all along. He put his girl between his legs, hit her starter, and closed his eyes for a moment, surrounded by the smooth rumble of his straight exhaust pipes. His bike was everything to him. The only thing he wanted more between his legs was Ivy. The only thing he loved more than his bike was fucking Ivy. And she was a fucking bitch.
Ivy leaned her head back against the door, her hands covering her face as she tried not to scream. She sucked in a deep, shaky breath in an attempt to control her temper, as well as her frustration. She wasn't having much luck. Fucking Jag. Finally, she heard the roar of his bike before it faded away. Coast was clear. She had no idea how the brother knew she had a man in her apartment. It was like he had some sixth sense. This wasn't the first time he'd chased a man away. Probably wouldn't be the last. The problem with being raised in a motorcycle club and being around bikers her whole life was just that, being around a bunch of misogynistic, macho bikers. Women were considered property of the club. Property. And being born into a bloodline of bikers made it hard to escape that. Not that she necessarily wanted to escape. She loved her brothers and she loved her life for the most part. She did well financially, working in her uncle's pawn shop and living above it rent-free. She also had gone to school for computers and programming, so she ran the club's website, all the club's businesses' websites, and fixed up any of the club members' computers when needed. In all reality, she could open her own computer shop if she wanted. She knew how to diagnose, knew how to program. The club relied on her a lot. Sometimes she even helped Ace, the club's treasurer, run the numbers for the club's finances. She was smart, but sometimes she just did dumb things. Like sleeping with Jag once during a drunken mistake one night after a pig roast. She had lost her mind and dragged him upstairs to his room at the clubhouse. Ever since then, there'd been tension between them. Luckily, Ace never found out because, even though the man was her uncle, he acted like a father to her, especially since she never knew her real father. And though he loved Jag like a son, she wouldn't put it past him to kick the younger man's ass for defiling Ivy, even though Jag was in no way her first lover. Ace tended to encourage Ivy to date men outside the club, though she wasn't sure why, since he was an ingrained member of the club himself. So he couldn't think the brothers weren't good enough, could he? Maybe he was just overprotective. Who knew? But Ivy slipped up that night. Jag didn't fight it, and now she's regretted it ever since. Because the last thing she wanted was to be wearing a property of Jag vest similar to the cuts that some of the other old ladies wore. She was an independent woman, goddammit, and intended on staying that way come hell or high water. But she had to admit that the guy she had brought home tonight wasn't for her. He was just going to scratch an itch. The date they went on had been boring. He was a nice guy, sure, and cute enough. However, the spark was missing. Both her and Jag had been drunk as all get out when they hooked up. That night there weren't sparks either. No, there had been explosions. And that scared her to death.
Jag sat at the large lacquered wood table, the one that had the Dirty Angels MC logo carved in it all those years ago by one of the founding members, his granddaddy, Bear. May the brother rest in peace. The way things were going, it didn't seem that there would ever be peace. Ever since Bear was killed by a shadow warrior back in the 80s, things had been a little rocky. Which brought his thoughts to his father, Rocky, who was serving a life sentence at SCI Green for taking out a few of those warriors in retribution. But even after all these years, the bad blood between the two clubs hadn't lessened. The warriors showed up now and again to create havoc like a bad fucking penny, And now, because of recent events, the club prez, Pierce, was sitting at the head of the table talking about keeping security beefed up at all the club's businesses, which put a bigger strain on Diesel, who was both the club's enforcer and in charge of in-the-shadows security, which provided bouncers to area bars as well as personal and commercial security to those who could afford it. Need to keep vigilant. Pierce glanced around the table, his eyes bouncing from one executive member to the next. Even the old ladies, so spread the word to them, too. Fucker had a set on him when he tried to snag Sophie right in front of Z on a busy street. If she'd been by herself, no telling what would have happened to her. Head nods and pounding of fists went around the table. Can tell you what would happen if they took one of our old ladies. A fucking slaughter, that's what, Diesel grumbled. No doubt, Hawk agreed. Yeah, and then we all end up at Green in adjoining cells like Rocky and Doc, Ace, the oldest member and the coolest head in the room, said to both of his sons. Jag whacked him on the arm. Then, brother, you and me both would get to see our pops. Ace frowned. Ain't funny, boy. Respect to Doc and Rocky, Dex shouted, causing a few hoots and hollers. Pierce pounded the gavel on the table. Okay. Settle down so we can get through our business and I can go bust a nut in my woman. They all chuckled. Now, anybody got shit going down with the Dark Knights? Pierce pinned his gaze on the large man at the other end of the table. Diesel? Nothing new. He looked to his left. Hawk? Only thing I got wind of is they took over Dirty Dick's bar. Pierce frowned. Took over? Hawk leaned forward to look down the table at Pierce. Not running it. At least not yet. Mostly using it as a regular hangout for anyone wearing their colors. That's just south of the city line, which could be concerning since it was farther out of the city than they've been before. Yup. They pushing shit? Hawk raised a brow. That was enough of an answer for Pierce. He muttered, shit. Dex spoke up. Last thing we need is them running drugs or guns through Shadow Valley. Don't want them stirring up the local boys in blue. That's for fucking sure, Jag muttered. Bad enough Axel's always hanging around Sophie's bakery. That's 'cause he's sniffing round Bella, Ace volunteered with a frown. I'll kill the fucker, Diesel said. The club's sergeant-at-arms was a bit overly protective of his cousin, though for good reason. Ace looked at his younger son. You ain't doing shit, boy. We can just hurt him a bit, Hawk added. Ace's head swung to his oldest, and he pointed a finger toward him in warning. You neither, boy. Leave him be. It'll sort sooner than later. You know better than to fuck with SVPD. But if they're fucking with DAMC, Pierce jumped in. Let it go for now. Got enough other shit going on than Axel getting a boner over Bella. Diesel's body visibly tightened, and his face twisted into a scowl. Hawk crossed his beefy arms over his chest and sat back in his chair, clearly unhappy with the order. Though no matter what their father or their president said, the brothers would always step in to protect their cousin. No question about it. And because of that, Jag knew he had to be careful with what could happen between him and Ivy, Bella's sister. She wasn't quite on their radar like Bella was, but it wouldn't take but a misstep to put her there, and he didn't need a hassle from either of them. Jag might not be a small man, and he made sure to keep in shape, but those two could pound him into the ground before he could say boo. Best to stay on their good side. Pierce leaned back in his chair. Maybe it's time for a sit-down with the Knights. See if they're willing to clue us in on what their intentions are. We don't want to be caught with our panties down round our ankles. That's for damn sure, Dex said. Ace nodded. Agreed. All in favor? Pierce asked. Eyes rose up around the table. If they're not willing to chit-chat, maybe we can get someone on the inside. One of Dog's girls or something, Dex suggested. Just a thought. Not sure if the Knights will easily accept an obvious stripper into their fold, but you never know, Pierce said. Pick a bitch that ain't so obvious. But they might agree to a sit-down. We can go that route first. Dex continued. If we need a plan, it's got to be one loyal to the club, no doubt. We ain't taking them down, we're just trying to get a little info on their territory grab. But still need to send in snatch that ain't gonna run her damn mouth. Not sure if we can trust one of Dog's girls for that. Should we even ask for a sit-down first? Might give him a heads up. Maybe send in a bitch, get some info, then ask for a sit-down once she's clear, Diesel suggested. Pierce turned toward Diesel. Handle it. Talk to Dog. See if any of his girls are reliable enough. If not, we may have to approach this from a different angle. Got it, Diesel grunted. All right, enough of the fucking bad news. This is a fucking MC and we haven't had a group ride in a while, so we need to get on that. Pierce looked pointedly at Jag. Yo, Road Captain, make it happen for Saturday. Got me? Jag nodded in agreement. Gotcha. Certainly could use it, especially now the weather turned. A couple yahs rose from the other members of the executive committee. Good. See it done. Hawk, plan a roast for after. Get the bitches to put something together. And get Mama Bear in the kitchen to make some good grub to go along with the hog. Done. Hawk grumbled, clearly still stewing about Bella and Axel. Jag might have to give his cousin a heads up. Axel may be a cop, but he was still blood. We done here? Pierce asked, looking around the table. When no one spoke up, he said, Good, and pounded the gavel on the table. As everyone pushed back their chairs and filed out, Ace put a hand on Jag's arm and tilted his head, indicating for him to hold back. Fuck. Ace waited until the last member left the meeting room, then turned his attention to Jag. Brother, you're like a son to me, but we need to have a sit-down of our own. About what? Jag asked, but he knew. He definitely knew. Ivy probably ran her mouth to her uncle first thing this morning at the pawn shop. You showing up in the middle of the night at the apartment. Wasn't the middle of the night. Ace just gave him a look. Jag shrugged and repeated. Wasn't. No matter. You got her all jacked up this morning. Had to hear her bitching for 20 minutes straight. What's going on between you two? Nothing. Well, I know that's bull. No reason for you to make yourself known every time she's got some man in her place. There were plenty of reasons, just none he wanted to spill. That don't bother you? Not my business. Right. But if it was one of the brothers doing nightly visits to Ivy's bed, Jag just bet Ace would make it his business. I'm just looking out for her like Hawk and Dee do for Bella, being protective. Ace snorted and shook his head. Right. Somebody's got to protect our women. You know Dex is perfectly fine with watching out for his sisters when it comes to that. Dex don't care who's crawling in and out of their beds. Then maybe you shouldn't either. Damn. Ace continued. What's your endgame? 'Cause you know I don't want her ending up with a brother. Sure as shit don't want her ending up like Bella did. Jag blinked. That shit'll never happen again. And it definitely wouldn't happen with me. So you got interest, Ace stated rather than asked. Fuck, he fell right into that trap. Nothing like looking a man he respected in the eye and telling him that he's interested in fucking his niece, who was like a daughter to him. Ace might be in his 50s, but he sired Hawk and Diesel, two very big guys, and the man was no slouch himself. Plus, he didn't need bad blood between them anyway. You got no problem with her apartment having a revolving door? That may have been the wrong thing to say. Ace's eyes narrowed and his shoulders squared off. Fuck. You saying she's as bad as a sweet butt? Holy fuck. She better not be as bad as one of the sweet butts, the eager women who hung around church to service any of the brothers whenever and wherever they wanted it. Most of them did it in hopes of one day becoming an old lady, which for most would never happen. Brothers didn't want to make a sweet butt an old lady. Nobody wanted something permanent with what everyone else may have had. Not saying that. Good. But maybe the door would stop revolving if you stopped chasing every guy she dates away. Dates. Right. Ace continued. Makes me think you're hung up on her, Jag. Makes me wonder if I should take that key back I gave you for an emergency. Haven't abused that key. Always knock. Yeah, probably have to paint the door to cover up that knock from last night. You need it painted, I'll get it done. Ace lifted his chin. Yeah, I'll let you know if the mark don't come off. Then your ass can fix your fuck up. Next time, he just use the key when Ivy refuses to open the door. That would really get her going. She got a gun? Ace's eyebrows rose. Why? Just asking. So you planning on interrupting her next time she's got a date? Yep. Ace dropped his head and shook it. His shoulders moved with what looked like laughter. Fuck, boy. You're lucky I like you. Jag smiled. Know it, Ace. Promise I won't ever hurt her. Better not, 'cause I'll kick your ass myself. And I'll kick it if you repeat this. But somebody's got to tame her wayward ways. She's restless. She ain't finding what she's looking for. That's obvious by that revolving door you mentioned. Maybe it's high time a brother tried to get her to settle down. So, I got your blessing? Jag asked, surprised at this sudden turn. Didn't say that, and it all ain't up to me. Ace studied him for a moment with his lips pursed and his hands on his hips, making Jag shuffle his feet uncomfortably. You know she don't do bikers. That's gonna be a hurdle right there. Little did he know, she already had done one. Once. Just needs to do one. Ace shook his head. Right. If she don't want you, you gotta drop this shit, hear me? And then let her figure out what she wants on her own. Hear ya. Won't be a problem. Just want her to be happy. You ain't the only one, Jag murmured. She'd have my nuts in a vice if she knew what we were talking about. No doubt. Don't think that nerd last night had any nuts, though. Ace snorted and slapped him on the back as they walked out of the meeting room into the common area of the clubhouse. Surprised there wasn't a line of shit from the balcony all the way out to his car. Jag grinned. Yeah, wouldn't be surprised at all if he shit his pants.